What's going on, Danglers? Welcome back to another episode of Quick Shifts, where we bring you everything that you may have missed in the NHL last night. Well, the year's 2018, and for the first time in his NHL career, Taylor Hall is going to the playoffs. Former #1 overall pick in the 2010 NHL draft, spent 6 long, miserable seasons with the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously didn't even sniff the playoffs in any of his time there. But the first year he gets himself out of Edmonton, well, the Oilers go back to the playoffs for the first time in like a decade. Meanwhile, he's back home after the first week of April after the Devils fail to advance. But after last night's 2-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs, the New Jersey Devils clinched their spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. They're heading back there, and Taylor Hall is getting his first taste of the action. And the way that the matchups look right now, it would be the Devils versus the Washington Capitals in the first round. And if I'm a Caps fan, that should scare the tits off of me. You're going up against a team who hasn't been in the playoffs in the last few years, and they're led by a guy who has 100% put himself in the conversation for the Hart Trophy. Taylor Hall, he has 93 points on the year, 39 goals, 54 assists. Meanwhile, the Capitals, everybody knows at this point, they're just perennial chokers in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they're heading into this series just praying to God that they don't choke again. And it's not even like they're leaps and bounds better than the Devils to begin with. So the fact that they're just playing not to lose and going up against a hungry Taylor Hall, I like the Devils' chances in that one. So with the New Jersey Devils clinching up that spot last night, that means that there's only one more playoff spot in the East still up for grabs, and there are two teams battling for it: the Philadelphia Flyers and the Florida Panthers. Last night, the Flyers have a super shaky one against the Carolina Hurricanes, but they still squeak out a 4-3 win. That crunches their magic number down to just 1 point. All they need is 1 point, and they're in the playoffs. They either need to get to overtime against the Rangers on Saturday, or they need the Panthers to lose one of their final games of the season. So last night, the Florida Panthers, they're going up against the Boston Bruins. Would they lose that game? Would their loss clinch a spot in the playoffs for the Philadelphia Flyers? No. Why not? Well, because the Boston Bruins are a bunch of fucking cowards. That's why. This team is so goddamn nervous about the Flyers ending up on their side of the bracket in the playoffs that they're doing everything possible to keep Philly out of the playoffs, even if that means dropping a game in regulation to the Florida Panthers last night and sabotaging their own standing in the playoffs. It's a fucking joke. I'll tell you that right now. There's not a doubt in my mind that the Bruins saw the score of the Flyers game last night, realized that the Panthers still need a little bit of help getting into the playoffs, and they blow that one in the third period. They are cowards. They have no balls. The Boston Bruins are so afraid of the Rome curse. They are so afraid of the Flyers that they are now dropping games on purpose just to keep Philly out of the playoffs. The Panthers have 2 more games left on the season. They're sitting at 92 points. The Flyers have 1 game left. They're at 96 points. So again, all it's going to take is 1 point, one way or another, for the Flyers to get in. They could take the Rangers into overtime on Saturday, or the Panthers could drop one of their final 2 games coming up here. But if they both end the season with 96 points, then I guess the tiebreaker goes to the season series, which I believe was tied. Then it would go to row, which I believe is tied. And then it would go to goal differential, which I think right now the Flyers have the advantage in. But still, it's going to be a crapshoot either way. So please, for the love of God, the Boston Bruins, find your balls and take down the Florida Panthers on Sunday, please. Now for an update out west. Well, after last night's 4-3 win over the Washington Capitals, the Nashville Predators have officially clinched the President's Trophy as the best team in the regular season. I mean, listen though, winning that game against Washington, that should be a big-time reminder to the Predators that winning the President's Trophy doesn't mean dick when it comes to playoff hockey. But here's the thing. In the 2 years since Nashville traded Shea Weber to Montreal for PK Subban, they've gone to the Stanley Cup Final, and now they follow that up by winning the President's Trophy the next year. So I know that Subban isn't the only reason for Nashville's success. I know that Shea Weber isn't the only reason why the Montreal Canadiens are a dumpster fire right now. But if you're great in that trade 2 years out, I don't understand how anybody could possibly defend Marc Bergevin still being employed. So the Predators lock up the President's Trophy in the Western Conference, and right now there is only one playoff spot in the West still up for grabs. The two teams battling for that are the Colorado Avalanche and the St. Louis Blues. And guess what? Those two teams play against one another in their final game of the season on Saturday night. So yeah, that is going to be an absolute gong show, because the winner of that game goes to the playoffs, and the loser of that game packs their shit. They're going golfing next week. So that is going to be can't fucking miss hockey on Saturday night between Colorado and St. Louis. And that's going to do it for today's shift. Time to dump and change.